The Call of Duty League announced their schedule today for the first ever season of franchising. And for Call of Duty fans, it's definitely different, right? Our previous multiple open lands events are now being put to the side and being replaced by the league. And much like professional sports, Call of Duty will now feature home and away games, a season composed of matches between all teams, and a championship at the end of the season. Let's get straight to the point. Good or bad, right? Is it good or is it bad? Where do our opinions kind of rely on when it comes down to the new schedule, the new world tour, as we're deeming it, right? Is this a good system to implement? Is it good that we're removing open events and instead moving to a totally new system where the league is now the primary focus? Also, considering that the Pro League in previous years has been attempted to be the pinnacle, right? The big guy in the middle of the schedule. The Pro League has always been attempted to try to make it more intense than it really or rather more prestigious than it really was. A lot of people would talk about how the league wasn't as interesting and didn't really, gain as much traction as what was wanted to. But is it good that we do that, right? Is this a good decision to finally go against the grain? And I will say, I think it absolutely is. I think that at this point, it's necessary and it's fundamental to change the system, right? Start to put a new system into action. And the formula speaks for itself when it comes to regular sports, right? And it's time for it to be put in the light now with Call of Duty Esports. Now, there have been a few concerns people have had with the new league format. First off, people have said, is it too much? Right? Is it too much the way that we're doing this? How busy players are going to be for the 6-month period? Are we having too many events? And each team will be hosting 2 homestand events. LA will combine for 1, so that equals out to 22 home events, not including the launch weekend, the mid-season event, and the championship event at the end. So you're looking at around 24 events. Is that too much? Like we've discussed, esports is starting to progress toward regular sports, right? Traveling is a part of that at the same time. And I know one particular area of the schedule that people were very worried about was in February, because certain teams will be flying out from London to Atlanta, to Paris, and then at the very end, at the start of March, to Los Angeles. And that's a very jam-packed schedule that you have going for you. But that's the thing. It works that same way in regular sports. And as time will go on, schedule changes can be made and kind of maybe for the future fix the possible issues of travel. But as of this moment, I don't mind it. I think it's a growing pain. I think it's something we have to kind of dive into. But I will say, could it start to oversaturate things? I think that's kind of an important aspect of this schedule to bring up. And I think there is a possibility of oversaturation. But you have to keep in mind, not every fan watches every game, right? In the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, long-running seasons, lots of games. No matter how hardcore of a fan you are, you probably haven't watched every single game of your favorite team for the last 3 to 4 years. It doesn't happen. You're not expected to watch those games either. But throughout this inaugural year, there's going to be, like I said, growing pains. Not just with the league itself, but also for players. This schedule, I will say, it puts for me into light a few different aspects. One of those things will be substitutes and staff. Even in regular sports, even if minutes were cut down and players could actually play each game, they're not playing 24/7. Let's be realistic, right? A typical game in the NBA, you cut the minutes in half. You say, you know what? Average NBA player, you could probably play each game and probably be fine stamina-wise, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to make you play each and every single game. Of course, would you like to? Absolutely. But you look at major stars in other sports, they don't play every single game, and that's for a multitude of different reasons. We can get in the argument of sports versus esports, but in general, players are going to get sick, right? Players are going to get tired from travel. Things like this will happen, especially when we're talking about a schedule that is so tight-knit for this 6-month period. This schedule not only changes the landscape of Call of Duty, it not only makes it more busy, but it also puts more of an emphasis, at least in my eyes, on Substitutes. Now we have this schedule in front of our eyes. We can now kind of respect the grind that it's going to be, right? All of the traveling, all of the work and practice now gets elevated when we see what this kind of gargantuan of a 6-month schedule is going to look like. And like I said, this for me puts more of an emphasis on the substitute players and the staff because they will be controlling what occurs now. It's going to be more than common, rather, for players to take a match off, right? Take a series off, maybe start to focus, prepare, rest even for other games, for other series. If we're talking about how we have to, in the next few days fly up from Paris to Los Angeles, you know what? Is this game versus what you could argue is the worst team in the league, is it worth it for you to play this one? Is it necessary for you to play this, game 5 search and destroy or this, starting off domination? Maybe not. Maybe we could give some time for the young guys to come in to really start to really show their worth. Now, we don't know how many series that will be played at each of these homestand events, and obviously information is going to be coming out more and more. But I'm personally thinking, maybe around 2. Everybody maybe plays 1 series per day, at least when it comes down to the actual events. Like when we're kind of in the middle of the schedule, I think teams will probably play around 1 series per day. That's a prediction based on the even amount of teams per each homestand event. That's at least kind of what I'm thinking. That's what I think kind of fits more. But as time goes on, like I said, it can be stressful, right? The traveling may get to a few people, so I think this will now free up some changes for substitutions to actually come in and to not only be there because of a possible map or game mode combination, but just to be there in case a player needs a night off. And this schedule also, in my eyes, affects the way that we also look at accomplishments, right? The way we look at championships, because no longer will event wins in the pre-franchise era mean as much. When you think about, oh my gosh, this guy has, 15, 16, 17, regular championship wins, or rather, major wins, then you think about world championships. It's now changed up because we don't have those same events the way that we used to. We talked about going away from the major open LAN events. That is now totally different. It's focused on the league. And for me, like I said, it's now focused on the same thing that regular sports is the championship at the end of the season is the primary focus. That's the way that it's going to work now. Because that, for me, is the only thing that transfers over is those world championships. Those extra titles, you know what? They're nice, right? To be a 10-time champion, but to also be a 1-time world champion, one of those is going to transfer. The other one's going to start to kind of drift off a little bit as the franchise era starts to progress on a little bit. So as much as we in the future may harp on event wins and total championships, much like in regular sports, you may be thinking about all the accolades. In my eyes, I think when we look down 3 to 4 years from now, I think everyone's focus will be on the world championships. And I think the stock in those as well just increased. So do I think the season is too long? No, I don't actually. 6 months? It's not that long. Is it too packed? I think you could argue differently, but I don't really think that it is. I think it's going to work just fine. I'm hoping the scheduling goes right because, of course, we don't know all the details around that as of this moment. But I think in this situation, making matches more exciting will be the way to go. I think you hype up certain matches. You make homestand events kind of more exciting depending on what team could be the home team versus away. I think you talk about the Battle of Europe. You talk about the Battle of the North. LA versus LA. I mean, there's so many different little storylines and things that you can kind of really start to hone in on. That will be, one particular series that fans will watch. So I think this, for me, is something that's good. And I think that a lot of questions have been on, can the league be self-sustainable? I think with the right planning and the right preparation, including the game issues around, Modern Warfare solving itself out, I think the new schedule and the new format for Call of Duty Esports is the right direction moving forward.